Okay, so we want to go back to this chart that we saw kind of going throughout the whole chapter where we broke things down into, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. We had a bunch of different divisions of the peripheral nervous system. So we had sensory motor, and then again, this chart's really good because it just reminds us, okay, what does each branch of each section kind of, what does it break into? So we had the motor division, we had the somatic, and we had the autonomic nervous system. And then today we are looking at, what does my autonomic nervous system break into? And we've kind of mentioned these a little bit before. So we mentioned the sympathetic division, and we mentioned the parasympathetic division, and now we just want to look at them a little more closely and just look at exactly sort of what is the role of this autonomic nervous system kind of in our body. Okay, and you want to always come back to, again, we're always trying to kind of maintain homeostasis, right? So autonomic nervous system, again, it's meaning that we're not really consciously in control of it. It's just all these things that are going to kind of, our body's going to do automatically. But your human body, again, it's very sensitive to changes in that internal environment. And again, we're engaging in this struggle to kind of balance competing demands for resources. And again, it's under changes, changes in the conditions are going to happen all the time. Okay, so your body is constantly trying to maintain this stable environment, even though all the things around us are kind of changing constantly. And this is going to depend largely on this autonomic nervous system. Okay, and it's going to innervate because we talked about the muscles or skeletal muscles, but this one's going to innervate more of the smooth muscle, cardiac muscles, and it's going to innervate all of our glands for us. Okay, so our autonomic nervous system is going to be constantly making adjustments to ensure optimal support for body activities. And these are just a couple examples, but it's going to shunt or it's going to move blood to areas that need more blood. It's going to adjust your heart rate based on your activity. It's going to dilate your blood vessels based on what part of your body needs blood and resources at that time. It's going to adjust your body temperature, stomach secretions, but again, all these things are things that we're not consciously kind of thinking of at the time, right? We just know that, okay, we're being more active, so I need more nutrients and oxygen and blood to my muscles, so I'm going to dilate those blood vessels, I'm going to adjust my heart rate to make sure I can get all those things to all those effectors that kind of need them. So much of these functions, again, are going to occur without our awareness or attention, okay? So we don't think about, hey, I got to dilate my blood vessels while I'm running, or I have to constrict blood vessels, or my bladder is full. Sometimes once it gets to a certain point, you'll recognize that, hey, my bladder's full, and it's going to tell us that we have to kind of go to the bathroom. But it's not something that we're kind of constantly kind of monitoring, right? So this motor subdivision of the peripheral nervous system, what they're going to say is that it has a certain amount of functional independence. And again, this is where we get into this involuntary nervous system, and it's basically just reflecting that it's kind of under this subconscious control. Okay, so we're not consciously, again, sort of aware of it. It is kind of, again, your brain is going to kind of monitor these things and decide what to do kind of on its own. Okay, so we're back to this one again. We want to look at autonomic nervous system, sympathetic division, and parasympathetic division. And then we want to think about, okay, we're controlling our effectors again. So we talked a lot about the somatic nervous system, and again, we're stimulating our skeletal muscles, but this time we're talking about this autonomic nervous system. So again, cardiac, smooth muscle glands. The one thing you want to remember is that they're not totally separate, right? A lot of times they're going to kind of work together, or they're going to be coordinated together. So higher brain centers are going to regulate and coordinate both somatic and autonomic motor activities. And again, most adaptation or changes that you're going to make are going to involve both systems. So, when we're running and we're choosing to sort of be active, we're choosing to run and we're choosing to use our muscles a lot, and our body's going to sense that we need more energy, and then it's going to do all these autonomic things kind of on its own to kind of support what we're trying to do. But again, a lot of it is in response to one system. Okay. So here again, we're back to our little picture, and now we're going to go over just the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions again. So parasympathetic was, again, it was rest and digest. And again, you want to just remember which one is more resting and digesting, which one is more fight or flight, and then what systems and what am I going to be kind of trying to do when I'm using each system. So parasympathetic, rest and digest. So we're keeping body energy use as low as possible. And again, we're trying to direct food digestion, and we're trying to get rid of waste. Okay, so this is where we're trying to be the least active so that we can take all our resources and sort of do these things, right? Break down our food, store energy, get rid of waste. This one always kind of comes into play when people, your mom or your dad used to always say, you don't want to go swimming after you eat. And again, it's because, after I eat something, my body goes into this rest and digest mode to try to break down our food and store nutrients. And if I try to be really active and I start trying to use my muscles too quickly, I basically have to shut off this digestion and sort of shunt all that blood out and those nutrients out to those muscles so that I can kind of keep moving. And after I shut these systems off, I just, I'll get a lot of sort of stomach discomfort, okay? And what they're basically trying to tell you is that physical activity while you're trying to do this is going to interfere with that digestion and all the things that your parasympathetic division is kind of trying to do. Okay, so sympathetic division is the opposite. It's going to be fight or flight. It's evident when we're excited. Okay, so you're basically trying to keep yourself alive. So it's scary or emergency situations. So you're pounding hard, deep breathing, dry mouth. And a lot of times you want to think about, okay, what would I need under these circumstances when I have to run away or I have to kind of stay and fight? And what muscle, I'm going to need all my muscles, I'm going to need all this energy and things like that. So where am I going to sort of put all these resources? And that'll keep you from having to kind of memorize, And then when you think about rest and digest, okay, where am I going to bring all these nutrients? I'm going to bring it to all my internal organs so that I can do all those other things, okay? So just remember, sympathetic division, fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest, and then what am I going to be trying to do under each of these little circumstances? So during vigorous activity, again, this is a good multiple choice question. These are the things that are going to kind of happen, okay? So when I'm actively, I'm vigorously exercising, I'm going to constrict visceral blood vessels. So remember, visceral is my organ, so I'm going to kind of shut off not all the blood, but a lot of the blood I'm going to try to move into the periphery, into my muscles, so that I can be more active, okay? So I'm just decreasing blood flow to my organs. I'm going to dilate my lung bronchioles, okay? So I'm going to make those bigger so that I can bring more air in, I can deliver more oxygen to my muscles. I'm going to stimulate my liver because it's going to release more glucose into my blood so that I can use it for energy. And then again, as we talked about with the no swimming after I'm eating, when we're doing this vigorous activity, we're going to reduce non-essential activities, and one of those is going to be our digestion. Okay, so you're basically taking, especially people talk about when they get this cramp, when they're running. So when you start running and you're going too fast and you kind of get these cramps, that's basically your body taking that blood out of your organs and trying to move it into your muscles and trying to move it out to those working muscles so that they can kind of be more active. But again, it's that shutting down of these non-essential activities that kind of gives you that little bit of cramping. So here's another picture of your parasympathetic, and this one's good because it'll kind of help you remember. So you want to remember where all these things are kind of originating from, but it kind of tells you, again, rest and digest. We go back to these little ganglia that we've learned about, and we want to go back and say, okay, well, what are the ganglia again? And again, they're collections of neuron cell bodies associated with the nerves in the peripheral nervous system, okay? And they're going to be located in different spots based on what system we're kind of talking about, okay? So you can see the ganglia for the parasympathetic division is going to come from up top, okay? So brain stem, and it's going to kind of come from down low by your sacrum. And then for my fight or flight, it's going to be a little bit different, right? They're going to originate from sort of this middle part of my spinal cord, middle part of the vertebral bodies, okay? And you can see where all these things are kind of going out to. But they give you these two little sort of bits of information here. So ganglia, again, collections of neuron cell bodies associated with nerves in the peripheral nervous system. My parasympathetic ganglia are going to be located, again, because what they're dealing with, again, is a lot of this visceral effector organs. So they're going to be located within or near the visceral effector organs. And with my sympathetic ganglia, okay, these ones are going to be located a little bit closer to the spinal cord. Right? So just one of those things where when you go back, you can kind of remember from the pictures, the ganglia for parasympathetic is going to be located by the organs, and the ganglia for my sympathetic are going to be located a little bit closer to the spine. Okay, so now at the last part of this part of the chapter, we look at some common disorders, and again, we've talked about a few of these, but we just want to kind of go over each of these a little more in depthly, okay? And these are ones we're going to stick to the ones that are kind of the most common. Alzheimer's is very common, as we live longer and longer, but it's going to result in dementia or mental deterioration. It represents half the people living in nursing homes, which is an astronomically kind of large number, okay? And especially, some of these things, as our population kind of lives longer and longer, we didn't really have to worry about Alzheimer's as much because we used to die when we were much younger. But as people start to live longer and longer, we have a lot of these diseases that are becoming more common. So 5 to 15% of people over 65 The biggest symptom is going to be this memory loss, and again, it's particularly short term. And this is where you'll find people, they remember things from a long time ago, but they can't remember things that have happened kind of in the recent future. Okay, they also get a shortened attention span, disorientation, language loss, and again, the important thing to remember about Alzheimer's is that it's resulting from this plaquing and tangling of our neurons. Okay, and you get this little picture here. So it's this plaquing, tangling of your neurons, and then again, I can't transmit things properly. Parkinson's disease, mostly people in their 50s or 60s. Important to remember that this one is resulting from a deterioration in dopamine releasing neurons at that synapse. So important to remember that when you're talking about Parkinson's, it's this deterioration of, or this problem with this dopamine. Okay, so dopamine is another one of our neurotransmitters that we talked about, and it's very, very important in just relaying messages, coordinating movements. Okay, so Parkinson's, a good multiple choice question is, what neurotransmitter is involved? And you want to remember that it's going to be dopamine. Okay, so your nuclei become overactive. You're going to have Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, where you're going to have tremors. Okay, so Parkinson's is one of these where it has tremors, again, resulting from this overstimulation of the nervous system. The difference between the tremors is that with Parkinson's, the tremors are going to be when they're at rest or when the person is kind of not moving. So they're just sitting, they're being still, they're not trying to do anything, and they're going to kind of have these tremors. So we used to remember this where you think about, with park, where I'm parking my car somewhere and it's not moving. That always kind of helped me remember that the tremors with Parkinson's are going to be when they're at rest and when they're not moving. And then with multiple sclerosis, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so here again is a picture where it shows you dopamine, Parkinson's, polio. We already talked about it a little bit, but it's basically from a virus. Okay, and it's from feces, contaminated water. Important to remember from this one when we talked about all the horns of our central nervous system. So this one destroys the ventral horn or motor neurons. And again, you want to remember that ventral is going to be motor, dorsal is going to have sensory kind of deficits, but we get fever, headaches, muscle pain, weakness, loss of reflexes, paralysis, muscle atrophy. And again, this one we've kind of come up with vaccines that can kind of keep us from getting this virus. Okay, so again, ventral horn, again, I just put this one up there because we have our ventral versus dorsal. And again, I want to remember that most of these questions are going to be, okay, dorsal is going to be sensory stuff, ventral is going to be motor deficits. Okay, multiple sclerosis, this one is going to be a demyelinating. We talked about myelin and transmitting these impulses over long distances. So with multiple sclerosis, you get this demyelinating autoimmune disease, and basically your body starts to, for whatever reason, it starts to attack our myelin proteins, and it's basically going to destroy these myelin sheaths in our central nervous system. Okay, so it results in visual disturbances, muscle weakness, clumsiness, paralysis, speech problems, urinary incontinence. But the biggest thing, and again for multiple choice questions, the biggest thing when you're talking about these people, they're going to also get tremors, but this is going to be a tremor when they're trying to move or when they're trying to reach and grab something or when they're trying to walk. They're going to get their tremors. So Parkinson, tremors when you're at rest. Multiple sclerosis is going to be tremors with movement. Okay, so here's a little picture, and again, you just want to remember it's, Parkinson was dopamine, tremors at rest. Multiple sclerosis is going to be this myelin sheath deterioration, and it's going to also come with tremors, but they're going to be when I'm moving. Okay, so next we're going to move on to all of our special senses,